Hello everybody, it's Carol here at Oak House Journals. Lovely to have you with me, and as you can see I'm going to do the Dogma Embroidery Challenge. Well, that's what I call it. The official name is the Stitched Circle Show Challenge, and as you can see it's being hosted by Lisbeth Degn, and the overall theme for the challenge is circles. So the Dogma rules for week 21 are that we are to choose two pieces of fabric in our favourite colour, to join them together and then to trace a circle onto them. So I've chosen blue for the colour of my fabric. This is my first piece of fabric, which is quite an open weave linen. The second piece of fabric is a much closer weaved cotton fabric again, but this one has been hand dyed. So here are my two pieces of fabric side by side so that you can see the difference, and this is a close-up of how they look together. As you can see, very different in terms of texture and weave. So as I mentioned, we're to join these two pieces of fabric together and then trace a circle on them. So here I've got my usual pot, and I'm just gauging what size of these pieces of fabric I'm going to need. And obviously I've got way too much, so my scissors are out there so that I can cut those pieces of fabric to more or less the right size and then trace my circle on the top. So here I've cut down those two pieces of fabric to roughly the right size. I've also cut out a portion of Bondaweb, and I'm going to put that on the back of the pale blue fabric. So here you can see I've got a piece behind the pale blue fabric, and I'm going to iron that onto the back of that piece of fabric before I lay it on top of the hand dyed fabric. So this is where it's on the back, ironed in place. Here I've just pulled off the backing, and here I've just ironed it on top of that hand dyed fabric. So the next job I had to do, now those two pieces of fabric are joined together, is to use my pot and with a Friction marker pen trace out a circle and then cut it out. So that's what I've done. And then I've also cut out a circle of Bondaweb to go on the back of that circle. So that's the Bondaweb on the back of the circle, and that's what it looks like on the other side. What you're seeing is the backing paper still in place there. I'll be peeling that off in a moment or two. So the second Dogma rule was to choose a piece of fabric, white or cream, as a background fabric. So that's what I've done there, and I've also put some Bondaweb on the back of that background fabric, and I'm going to use that to adhere that background fabric to my journal page in due course. Bondaweb is an adhesive, but easily I could have used fabric glue if I'd wanted to, but I prefer Bondaweb. The third Dogma rule was to attach the circle of our favourite fabric onto the background fabric, so that's what I've done here. And then we are to choose 6 thread colours for our stitching on the circle, and the stitch that we're using this week is feather stitch, and we're to stitch it in a spiral onto that circle. So I've pulled out my box of blue DMC threads, and here are the 6 threads that I'm going to use. All are DMC stranded cottons, so I'm going to pull a length of each of those. So that's my 6 lengths of just 2 strands of DMC stranded cotton, and when we do our stitching we're just to randomly pick one of those threads, stitch until the thread is all used up, and then randomly get another one or choose another one. So here I've marked with a Friction marker pen the spiral that I'm going to be stitching on my circle, and then I just grab one of my threads and a needle and start doing feather stitch. And here in this picture you can see I've made a start doing my stitching, not necessarily following the lines that I've drawn, but I have used them as a guide, and I've also taken my stitching slightly off the circle and onto the background fabric, and you can see it in more detail here. So just happily stitching round, trying to keep my stitches fairly even, but larger on the outside, a bit smaller on the inside. And this is what my piece looks like now that I've finished it. So we're going to see a few pictures here of the finished piece for this week. I have been enjoying this challenge so much that I have been doing some of the pieces again, but loosely following the weekly Dogma rules and stitching them in, or on rather, some of my hand rusted fabric. Now, this was one that I absolutely loved doing, so I decided that I would do a second piece, and this is coming up now. It'll show you my finished piece. And this is my finished piece. So my stitching is a lot looser. I've used 2 strands of DMC thread for the spiral. Haven't changed my colours for the spiral. What I've done is I've used a variegated thread, and as I say, I've tried to make my stitching a lot more uneven, a bit more organic. I've also backed behind my circle with another circle of vintage handwritten text. As you can see, I've done an outline of that with some French knots, this time in just a bronzy coloured DMC thread, couple of strands and 2 wraps for my French knots. And then just to finish everything off, I did a couple of lines of split back stitch at the top and to the left hand corner and to the bottom and right hand corner. So I hope you like seeing my slight variation on the Dogma rules. We also did one the other week that was weaving, so I thought I'd share what I've done in my hand rusted fabrics. So this is what you're seeing now. Sorry, I was hesitating there. So it's a mixture of threads, my hand rusted fabric, some macrame thread and some more of that vintage book text. And rather than do a circle, I decided that I would do an oblong on my page. So I've got a few more close-up photos of this weaving that I've done. So as always, everybody, thank you so much for letting me share what I've created for Lisbeth's challenge, and also on the side, if you will, for my rusted fabric journal. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and Lisbeth, I look forward to next week and whatever inspiration you're going to come up with for our challenge assignment next week. Until then, everybody, bye bye now.